The Clockkeeper's Quest. Max Carter loved exploring the flea market with his dad, always on the hunt for hidden treasures. One chilly morning, he wandered to a dusty corner where an old man with a twinkling eye sat by a table of peculiar items. Among the rusted compasses and faded maps, Max spotted a strange brass clock. Its face glowed faintly, with swirling patterns of stars and moons. "How much for this clock?" Max asked. The old man leaned forward. "This isn't just a clock, it holds secrets and chooses its owner," he said with a mysterious grin. Max handed over $5, his heart racing with curiosity. As he walked away, the man called out, "Time isn't just measured. Boy, it's lived." Max felt a chill. Somehow, he knew his life was about to change. That evening, Max placed the brass clock on his bedside table, its soft hum filling the room. He couldn't stop staring at the intricate patterns on its face. As curiosity got the better of him, Max carefully turned one of the clock's hands backward. Suddenly, the room went silent, too silent. The hum of the clock grew louder, and a burst of golden light filled the space. Max stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When the light dimmed, he saw a small, glowing figure hovering above the clock. "I am Tak," the creature said, its voice clear and bright. It was about the size of Max's hand, with a shimmering body and tiny wings that sparkled like stars. "You've awakened the Keeper of Time." Max stared in disbelief. "You, live in the clock?" "Not just in it," Tak replied with a grin. "I guard it. And now, so do you." "What does that mean?" Max asked, his heart pounding. "It means," Tak said, flying closer, "you've been chosen to fix what's broken in the flow of time. And trust me, Max, time is in big trouble." Max didn't know what to say. The strange clock wasn't just an antique, it was a portal to something far bigger than he could have imagined. And now, it seemed, his ordinary life was about to become extraordinary. That night, as Max examined the clock under his desk lamp, its hands began to spin wildly. The strange hum grew louder until a sudden flash of light filled the room. When Max opened his eyes, a tiny figure stood before him, a creature no taller than a soda can with a round body, glowing eyes, and arms like clock hands. "I'm Tak," the creature said in a voice like chiming bells. "Guardian of time." Max froze. "Guardian of what?" Tak sighed. "The clock you found is a portal. One of the last remaining in the world. It's broken. And unless we fix it, time itself could unravel." Max blinked, still trying to process what was happening. "And what does that have to do with me?" "You activated it," Tak explained, crossing its tiny arms. "Now you're its keeper. Together, we need to find the lost fragments of time hidden across history. Without them, the world as you know it will collapse." Max hesitated but felt a strange pull of responsibility. "Okay, where do we start?" Tak grinned. "Good question. Let's begin where it all began, 65 million years ago." Before Max could ask what that meant, the clock's hands spun again, and the room disappeared into a swirl of light. Moments later, he found himself standing on a sunlit plain, staring up at the largest dinosaur he had ever seen. "Welcome to the past," Talk said with a smirk. "Try not to get eaten." Max fiddled with the clock until it suddenly glowed and pulled him into a swirling tunnel of light. When he opened his eyes, he was in a prehistoric jungle, surrounded by towering ferns and distant dinosaur roars. Talk appeared from the clock. "We're in the late Cretaceous. The first piece of time is here, follow me." They navigated through the jungle, avoiding a triceratops, until they reached a smoking volcano. Embedded in the rock was the gleaming shard they needed. Just as Max reached for it, a T-Rex appeared, and the volcano began to erupt. Thinking quickly, Max turned the clock's dials, slowing the T-Rex enough for them to grab the shard and escape. As lava flowed behind them, Max held the shard tightly, ready for whatever came next. The clock whirred again, and Max found himself standing in the middle of a medieval village. Stone cottages lined the streets, and in the distance, a towering castle loomed. Villagers hurried past, whispering about a dragon terrorizing the kingdom. Talk fluttered beside him. "The second piece of time is hidden in the dragon's lair inside that castle. But it won't be easy." Max approached the castle gates, where he met Sir Cedric, a brave but nervous knight. "I'm supposed to slay the dragon," Cedric admitted, "but I can't even get near it." Max offered to help. Together, they entered the castle and followed the sound of growls to a grand, firelit hall. The dragon guarded a golden shard, its glowing eyes locked on them. Max gripped the clock, twisting its dials. Time slowed as the dragon lunged, giving Sir Cedric a chance to distract it while Max snatched the shard. As they fled, Sir Cedric thanked Max for his bravery. "You saved the kingdom," he said with a bow. Talk grinned as they prepared to leave. 2 shards down. Max time to keep moving. Max landed with a thud on the deck of a creaking pirate ship, the smell of salt and sea filling the air. Around him, rough-looking pirates shouted orders as the ship rocked on turbulent waves. In the distance, a storm loomed, and a shadowy island appeared on the horizon. "Where are we now?" Max asked. Talk fluttered out of the clock. "Welcome to the golden age of piracy. The next piece of time is hidden on that island, guarded by a dangerous pirate captain." The ship's captain, a fierce woman named Captain Marlowe, noticed Max and demanded to know who he was. Thinking quickly, Max claimed to be a cartographer who could help find the island's treasure. Skeptical but intrigued, Marlowe let him stay. When they reached the island, Max and Talk sneaked away from the crew, following the clock's glow toward a hidden cave. Inside, they found the shard, embedded in a chest of gold and jewels. Just as Max grabbed it, Marlowe and her crew appeared, swords drawn. "You've got guts, boy," Marlowe said with a smirk. "But nobody steals from me." Max twisted the clock's dials, creating a sudden whirlpool in the cave. The pirates stumbled, giving Max and Talk enough time to escape with the shard. As they climbed back onto the ship, the whirlpool calmed, and Captain Marlowe let out a hearty laugh. "You've earned your freedom," she said. "But don't cross me again." As the clock whirred to life once more, Max clutched the shard, ready for the next challenge. Max felt the heat of the sun as he landed in a dusty town straight out of the Wild West. Wooden saloons, swinging doors, and the sound of boots crunching gravel surrounded him. A tumbleweed rolled by, and a group of cowboys were huddled around a wanted poster. Talk appeared, scanning the area. The next piece of time is here, Max. It's hidden in a silver mine outside of town, but it looks like trouble's brewing. Max approached the cowboys and learned that a gang of outlaws, led by the notorious Blackjack Bill, had taken over the mine. The townsfolk were too scared to fight back, and the sheriff had vanished. Determined, Max decided to help. With Talk's guidance, he sneaked into the mine under the cover of night. Inside, he found Blackjack Bill and his gang guarding the shimmering piece of time embedded in the rock. Max hatched a plan to distract the outlaws. Using the clock, Max slowed time just enough to cause confusion among the gang. Tools clattered to the ground, and torches flickered wildly. As the outlaws stumbled around, Max snatched the shard and bolted toward the entrance. Blackjack Bill caught sight of him and chased him on horseback. Max twisted the clock's dials, creating a sudden gust of wind that spooked Bill's horse, giving Max the chance to escape back to town. The townsfolk cheered when Max returned with the shard. "You're a true hero," one cowboy exclaimed, as the clock began to hum again. Max smiled and held the shard tightly. Another piece secured. Another adventure awaited. Max landed in a quiet village illuminated by glowing lanterns. The air was filled with the sound of soft flutes and the aroma of incense. He had arrived at an ancient Japanese festival. People in colorful kimonos wandered the streets, and children carried paper lanterns shaped like animals. "This is the Obon Festival," Talk explained. "A celebration to honor ancestors. But there's a problem, the next piece of time is hidden in a shrine guarded by a shadow spirit." Max followed the clock's glow to a hill overlooking the village. At the top stood a grand shrine shrouded in eerie mist. As he approached, a dark, wraith-like figure emerged, its glowing red eyes fixed on him. "The spirit feeds on fear," Talk whispered. "You'll have to outsmart it." Gathering his courage, Max bowed respectfully. "I've come to retrieve the shard that protects time," he said firmly. The spirit hissed but didn't attack. Using the clock, Max slowed time, allowing him to navigate the shrine's maze-like corridors. He avoided traps and solved puzzles etched into the walls, each one revealing more of the spirit's story. It wasn't evil, it was protecting the shard from those who would misuse it. Finally, Max reached the central altar, where the shard rested in a stone pedestal. The spirit appeared again, blocking his way. "Prove you are worthy," it whispered, its voice echoing. Max closed his eyes and spoke from his heart. "I don't want to harm time. I want to protect it for everyone." The spirit paused, then slowly moved aside, its red eyes softening. Max retrieved the shard, and the shrine's mist lifted, revealing a beautiful view of the village below. As he left, the spirit bowed in gratitude, fading into the lantern-lit night. Talk fluttered beside him. "That was brave, Max. You didn't just win the shard, you earned its respect." With the shard in hand, the clock whirred to life, and Max prepared for his next adventure. The clock spun faster than ever, and Max found himself in a strange, shimmering space. Floating clocks and shifting gears surrounded him, their ticking filling the air. Talk hovered nearby, his usual cheer replaced by a nervous flutter. "We're in the nexus of time," Talk explained. "It's the heart of time itself. But something's wrong." As Max moved deeper into the nexus, he encountered a robed figure with glowing eyes and a clockwork staff. Talk's voice trembled. "That's Cronus, the timekeeper, the one who created the shards. But something has corrupted him." Cronus turned to Max, his voice booming. "You seek to restore time. But you are unworthy. The shards are mine, and time will obey my will." Before Max could respond, Cronus unleashed a storm of spinning gears and twisting shadows. Max dodged, clutching the clock tightly. "I don't want to control time, I want to protect it," he shouted. Talk whispered urgently. "Use the shards. They're the only way to stand against him." Max placed the shards he had collected into the clock. It glowed brightly, creating a barrier that deflected Cronus's attacks. As the energy from the shards grew stronger, the corrupted glow in Cronus's eyes began to fade. "Stop this madness, Cronus," Max pleaded. "Time belongs to everyone, not just you." Cronus hesitated, his voice softening. "Perhaps, you are right. But the balance is fragile, and you must prove yourself." He raised his staff one last time, creating a final challenge for Max, a labyrinth of shifting paths and traps. With Talk's guidance and the power of the shards, Max navigated the labyrinth and reached the core of the nexus. There, he found a new shard, the largest yet, pulsing with energy. Cronus, now fully himself again, knelt before Max. "You have shown courage and wisdom. The shards trust you, as do I. But your journey is not over." As the nexus began to dissolve, Max felt a surge of determination. Holding the new shard tightly, he braced himself for the challenges to come. Max landed in a world blanketed in ice and snow. Jagged mountains stretched into the distance, and the cold bit sharply at his skin. A chilling wind howled as Talk appeared, shivering slightly. "The next shard is here, hidden deep within the frozen kingdom. But beware, it's guarded by the Frost King." Max trudged through the snow, eventually spotting an enormous ice palace shimmering under the pale sun. As he approached, he noticed the village at the base of the palace was eerily silent. The people were frozen in place, encased in ice like statues. "They've been trapped by the Frost King," Talk explained. "If we don't act quickly, they'll remain like this forever." Inside the palace, Max found the Frost King seated on a throne of ice, the shard embedded in his icy crown. "Who dares disturb my kingdom?" the Frost King boomed, his breath forming clouds of frost. Max stood his ground. "I've come for the shard. Time must be restored." The Frost King laughed, summoning icicles that shot toward Max. Using the clock, Max slowed time, dodging the attacks and racing toward the throne. The Frost King, enraged, created a blizzard that nearly blinded Max. "Talk! I need help!" Max shouted. "Use the warmth of the shards," Talk called back. Max held the clock tightly, channeling the energy of the collected shards. A golden light burst forth, melting the Frost King's blizzard. The Frost King faltered, his icy form beginning to crack. "You are stronger than I thought," the Frost King muttered, his voice softening. "Take the shard. But remember, power must be tempered with kindness." With the shard in hand, Max watched as the villagers began to thaw, life returning to their frozen forms. They cheered and thanked him as he prepared to leave. As the clock whirred again, Max glanced back at the melting ice palace. He felt the weight of his mission grow heavier. But his resolve was stronger than ever. Max arrived in a vast, sun-scorched desert where towering sand dunes stretched endlessly. The air shimmered with heat, and the only sound was the whisper of the wind. Talk fluttered beside him, his feathers ruffled. "The next shard is here, hidden in the sands of eternity. But time moves differently in this place, stay focused." Max trudged through the desert, following the clock's faint glow. Hours seemed to stretch into days, and strange illusions flickered in the distance, cities made of gold, rivers flowing backward, and stars shining in the daytime. As Max climbed a massive dune, he spotted a mysterious structure buried halfway in the sand, a colossal hourglass with glowing, swirling sand trapped inside. "The shard is there," Talk said, pointing to the hourglass's center. "But it's guarded by the Sentinel of Time." Before Max could reach the hourglass, the sand beneath him shifted, and a massive creature emerged. The Sentinel was a towering figure made of golden sand, with glowing eyes and arms that stretched like whips of wind. "Turn back," it boomed. "Only those worthy of mastering time may pass." Max stood firm. "I'm here to restore time, not control it." The Sentinel tested Max by creating a series of challenges. First, it sent waves of sandstorms that Max had to navigate. Then, it showed him visions of his past, tempting him to stay lost in happy memories. Max resisted, focusing on his mission. Finally, the Sentinel created a giant maze in the sand, which shifted constantly as Max ran through it. With Talk's guidance and the power of the shards, Max found the center of the maze and reached the hourglass. As he touched the shard, the Sentinel knelt before him. "You have proven your determination and humility. Take the shard, and may it guide you wisely." The hourglass disintegrated, and the desert began to transform. Flowers bloomed where sand had been, and the air grew cooler. As the clock began to hum, Max held the shard tightly, ready for the next step in his journey. Max appeared on a floating island high above the clouds. Towering airships roared through the stormy skies, lightning illuminating their golden frames. Talk pointed to the largest airship, the Tempest Queen. "The next shard is aboard that ship, but Queen Zephyra fiercely guards it." Max sneaked onto a smaller airship and made his way to the Tempest Queen. Once aboard, he followed the shard's glow to the central engine, where it pulsed with energy. Before he could grab it, Queen Zephyra appeared, her cape crackling with lightning. "You seek the shard," she said, her voice commanding. "Prove you are worthy of its power." Zephyra summoned a ferocious storm, lightning bolts striking all around. Max used the clock to slow time, dodging her attacks and edging closer to the shard. Time isn't meant to be controlled by one person, he said. It's meant to protect everyone. Hearing his words, Zephyra paused, her storm subsiding. You have courage and wisdom, she said. Take the shard. But remember, the balance of time is fragile. Max removed the shard from the engine, its golden glow filling the ship. As the storm calmed, Zephyra nodded in approval. Go and finish what you've started. With the shard in hand, Max felt the clock hum, ready to guide him to his next challenge. The end of his journey was near. The clock spun faster than ever before, and Max found himself in a dark, crumbling city. The air was heavy, the sky torn between night and day, and everything seemed frozen in time. Talk appeared beside him, his voice grave. This is the edge of time, the place where everything begins and ends. The final shard is here. Max followed the faint glow of the clock, weaving through eerie, motionless figures trapped in mid-action. At the heart of the city stood a towering obelisk, its surface cracked and pulsing with unstable energy. The final shard was embedded at the top, but reaching it wouldn't be easy. Before Max could climb, Cronus, the timekeeper, appeared again. You've done well to come this far, he said, his staff glowing. But the final shard is mine to guard, and you must prove you're ready to wield its power. The obelisk began to shift, transforming into a labyrinth of collapsing pathways and spinning gears. Max jumped from platform to platform as time itself fractured around him. Some areas sped forward in a blur, while others dragged him into slow motion. Talk fluttered ahead, guiding him through the chaos. You're almost there, Talk shouted as the ground beneath them crumbled. At the top, Max reached for the shard, but Cronus blocked his way. Why do you seek to restore time? Cronus demanded. Max hesitated for only a moment. Because time belongs to everyone. It's not something to control, it's something to protect. Cronus studied him, then stepped aside. You've proven yourself worthy, he said. Take the shard and restore balance. Max grabbed the shard, and the obelisk shattered into light. The frozen figures around him began to move, life returning to the city. As the shards in the clock glowed brightly, Talk smiled. You did it, Max. The clock is complete. But Max knew it wasn't over yet. The clock's glow intensified, pulling him toward what would be his final challenge, the moment that would decide the fate of time itself. The clock hummed louder than ever as Max was pulled into a swirling void of light and shadow. He landed in a space where time itself seemed to unravel, fragments of moments floated around him like shattered glass. At the center of it all was the clock of eternity. A massive, glowing structure that pulsed erratically, threatening to collapse. Talk appeared beside him. This is it, Max. The clock of eternity controls all of time. You must use the shards to restore it. But be careful, any mistake could destroy everything. Max approached the clock, the shards glowing brightly in his hands. As he inserted the first few shards into their slots, the structure began to stabilize, its broken gears and hands slowly realigning. But just as he reached for the final shard, a shadowy figure emerged. It was the corrupted version of Cronus, the fragment of his former self still clinging to power. You think you can fix what you don't understand? The shadow hissed. Time is chaos. It cannot be controlled. The shadow attacked, hurling waves of dark energy. Max used the completed shards to shield himself, creating bursts of golden light that pushed the shadow back. Each strike made the void tremble, and Max realized that defeating the shadow wouldn't be enough. He had to reconcile with it. Time isn't about control, Max said, standing firm. It's about balance, about letting it flow naturally for everyone. The shadow hesitated, its form flickering. Max took the final shard and placed it in the clock of eternity. The structure erupted in a brilliant light, the void transforming into a cascade of flowing moments, sunrises, laughter, tears, and everything in between. The shadow faded, merging with Cronus, who now stood whole again. You've done what I could not, Cronus said, his voice calm. You've restored time and reminded me of its true purpose. As the clock of eternity began to tick steadily once more, Max felt the weight of the shards lift from him. The clock in his hands shimmered, its power now dormant, its mission complete. You did it, Max, Top cheered. Time is restored, and the world is safe. Max smiled, feeling both relief and pride. As the void dissolved, he was returned to his room, the clock now an ordinary relic on his desk. Though his adventure had ended, Max knew he would never forget the lessons he'd learned: courage, responsibility, and the precious gift of time. And as the first rays of sunlight streamed through his window, Max whispered, "Every second counts."